want to bring in attorneys Brian Claypool. What do you think will be the greatest challenge for the prosecution as they try to get this thing to trial?
Hey, Marnie, nice to see you again. The biggest challenge is Alvin Bragg failed to articulate in this indictment a state law that President Trump allegedly violated in addition to these 34 counts. We talked about this earlier. Bragg can't just prove that President Trump 34 times made improper or forced somebody to make improper fraudulent notations in accounting records. That's not enough. Bragg needs to cite a second crime. He needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt a second crime. What's that second crime? I didn't see anything in that indictment that references a second crime. He did mention vaguely a state campaign election finance law. That's not going to fly, Marnie, because this was a federal election, not a state election. Trump's lawyers are going to argue the legislative intent of a state election law is for a state election, not a federal election. Bragg then cites a federal law violation, a federal campaign election violation, that the 130,000 went over the limit. Again, you can't argue a federal law violation in a state court. As such, I expect Trump's lawyers unequivocally to be filing a motion to dismiss these charges for the two reasons I just mentioned. There's not even a law cited, and if they do rely on the federal law, that the court lacks proper jurisdiction. Any reputable prosecutor, Marnie, rest assured, in the highest profile case on the planet, right, including Mars, like you mentioned before, that prosecutor would tell a global audience, what is the second law that Trump violated? And he is going to lose this case because of that. There isn't anything, just so your viewers know, it is a bit complicated. You can't just argue 34 counts, right? And he did that on purpose, by the way. He's a good, salacious short story writer. 34 federal counts. There's not 34 counts because he didn't cite a single second law. You got to prove that second violation. And if he had that information, Marnie, rest assured, he would tell us what that is. One other point. I would not want to be in Bragg's shoes when your two star witnesses in this case, if it ever gets to a jury, are a convicted felon who in 2018, Marnie, stated unequivocally, he said this unequivocally, that $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels had absolutely nothing to do with the election in 2016. He said that. That's the prosecution's star witness. And then the second star witness is a former adult film actress. So I would not want to be in his shoes.
Both in all of this is that the defendant in this case is Donald Trump himself, a former president. One option that his defense has is, I did this to save my marriage, right? It goes back to intent. So how critical will that be? Will that be the key to their argument to ultimately avoid guilty? Brian, I'll go with you on that. I'm going to just go. Sure. I'll ping pong. Brian, you go.
Yeah, sure. Your question presupposes that Bragg gets this to trial, so I'll give you that assumption that you get to trial on this case. Now, in order, like Trump's going to argue exactly what you said, that look, this hush money payment was made, and I made this to salvage my family. And that is going to be corroborated by what I just said a couple of minutes ago. He's not making this up. This isn't some fictional thing that Trump's going to argue at trial. He talked to his top lawyer who said, I'll take a bullet for Trump. And Cohen already testified with the federal investigation that that's absolutely correct, that Trump wanting to put a hush on this had absolutely nothing to do with trying to influence the 2016 election. So in effect, think about it, Marnie, the Trump defense team is actually going to benefit from the prosecution calling Michael Cohen as a witness to prove this point.
I'll think about it, Brian Claypool. Let's put a pin in it. Great to have you both with us today. Thank you.